Good day. I thought I'd talk about something a little bit different this episode of Jawing on Deck. About something that, as I've gotten older, has begun to occur to me. Different things that happen throughout the course of my life that at the time I didn't really understand their significance, the gravity or the magnitude of what was occurring. But what is undeniable is that these things occurred. They are experiences that I have personally lived through. And I am not going to make any effort, really, to try to convince anybody of these things. Because I know they happen.
You sure you do? Sure.
And I'm sure that these things have also happened to many people. It's not uncommon for people to undergo or experience something with the potential of in my case, catastrophic or very serious consequences. Was a story that my mother used to tell me. I remember that she said that at one time when I was just a baby, old enough to walk, able to get up and bolt, for whatever reasons we happened to be there, and I think she was sitting in the car or near the car, and I was running around outside the car, parked near the edge of a very steep cliff. And what she used to recount to me is that one day when we were there, that I took off as a little child, running at full speed. You know, babies can move once you get old enough to where they can get on their feet and start running. And she said that I almost ran right off that cliff. And she said she just barely caught me before I would have went off the cliff. And she seemed quite, had she not caught me, that would have probably been the end of me. So I wish I had more details on it, but always stood out was when she presented that she was quite insistent, had I run off that cliff, you know, I might not have survived that fall. And well, I wish I had more information, but that was the first time that I had personally experienced a scenario, or was involved personally in a scenario in which, had it not been for the intervention of my mother in this case, I could have been killed had I run off that cliff. Just one moment of laxed consciousness, had she been doing any other number of things at that time and not keeping an eye out on me, I would have gone over the cliff, because what she always emphasized is that she caught me right at the edge of this ravine, whatever it was. And so that was the first occurrence of something that had the potential to be a life-threatening or a catastrophic event that might have, you know, ended my life at an early age. Really pondered the gravity of it, as like most people, you know, it's just water under the bridge, right? We don't really think or consider, or the tendency is we don't really, or let's put it this way. In my case, I never really pondered that happening in a more deeper way, or certainly never saw it in a you can view that as a life and death scenario in which it worked out, right? She caught me, no problem, life goes on, and just forget it. But that was the first one, no matter how you want to see it. I guess where I'm really going to go with this ultimately, because I have a variety of accounts of things that I know that I experienced that could have ended up very badly, but did not, though they had the potential. And so, whether or not that is just mere chance, or is there something more? And this is kind of where ultimately with these stories that I'm going to talk about, that as I've gotten older, I'm beginning to see a pattern that occurred and is still occurring to this day, which makes one then wonder if there's these occurrences are part of something much larger other than just merely random occurrence. Of course, if you want to know about if a person wants to gain insight on these things, there is knowledge out there that the Jewish people have brought down over thousands of years that go into great deal on this topic, that nothing is a random occurrence. And as I've aged, I've come to see that what I used to think was just merely a random occurrence is clearly not. It's become very obvious that and I want for a better way of describing it, but in Ecclesiastes, there's a scripture in there. It says, for everything there is an appointed time. And I know, I've read that scripture half a dozen times or more, right? And all it was is words on a page. But if we ponder those words, for everything there is an appointed time. Well, what's the first thing, if a person can think and reason for themselves, what does that mean for everything? What is everything? And has anyone, I went 60 years and never looked up the definition of the word everything. But if you look up the definition of the word everything, everything means just that. Everything. It doesn't just mean the big things. It doesn't mean just life and death things. It means everything. Everything does not mean just wars or or merely the biggest things that occur. Everything means everything. If you look at that scripture, it says for everything there is what? It's an appointed time. Then of course the next logical question is, well, who appoints it, right? Of course in this scripture it's referring to God. That God himself says, for everything there is an appointed time. So, whether or not a person is at the point, because I'm sure that some of you probably don't even believe that there's a God exists, right? So, if I just go with that scripture, it says for everything there's an appointed time, that would then by definition mean that it was appointed that I took off running and I was going to go over that cliff. But it was also appointed that her attention came on to me to say yes before I went over the cliff. That's what that means. That's what that scripture means. For everything, there's an appointed time. I think there are people out there that read a scripture like that and they think, well, God must be just talking about big stuff, like World War I or something more profound, the formation of a nation. But that's not what it says. The scripture says for everything. So by definition, that means anything and everything. Everything means anything and everything. So it means if you bump your toe tonight when you go into the bedroom, that was appointed. That's what that means. Which means that there's then, by extension again, it means nothing is random. What I'm trying to get at here is that, okay, so that, back to my life, that was the first time I could have been killed, according to my mother. I would have died if I'd have run off that cliff. So that was appointed. If I go with the biblical explanation and truly accept what God said, right? Because allegedly, God's the one that said that. So that was the first time that, at a young age, I had a life and death experience that I could have easily died, but by definition of that verse, it means that God decided that I wouldn't die that day by my mother's conscious attention in catching me before I fell off that cliff.